Hey everybody, I am Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and today I'd like to show you how you can create for yourself at home this gorgeous, dramatic woman under a hat. She's got flowers, she's got the red lips, she's got everything. I'm going to explain everything about this painting to you step by step, and to help me do that is my husband, John.
Hey guys.
He makes sure that our cameras are focused on the things that I'm demoing or explaining so you're able to create this for yourself easily. Now, you can paint her today by herself. That's completely okay. But I would like to point out that she is part of a 30-day painting program and invite you to come join us for all the paintings that we're doing in this series. Get your paint, get your brushes, come back and meet me at the easel right now. We're going to paint this gorgeous lady in a hat. The colors in today's palette are Mars Black, Burnt Sienna, Cad Yellow Medium, Quinacridone Magenta, Cad Red Medium, Naples Yellow Light, Phthalo Blue, Phthalo Green, Dioxazine Purple, and Titanium White. The first part of this is very straightforward. We're going to paint our entire 8x8 surface black, and then we're going to dry it so that we can grid it. If you have deep sides like I do, it's a good time to paint the sides now and make sure everything is dry. As soon as your surface is entirely covered in paint and dry, you can begin the gridding process. Now I'm going to take my chalk tool and a measurement tool. This is a T-square. It has 1 inch markings across it. I'm going to make a mark every inch, and then I'm going to make lines, straight lines, vertical and horizontal on the marks, making a 1 by 1 inch grid. As soon as my 1 by 1 inch grid is created, I'm going to number the top line of squares 1 through 8 from left to right across the top. And then I'm also going to number them 1 through 8 across the left side from top to bottom to match my grid reference. Now, how you use the grid reference is, instead of trying to draw everything that you see on the total image, you draw specifically the contour lines in each individual square. So if I'm here on row 5 over on section 8, I can see that a little bit of the hat is coming off here, entering from this part of the line out there, and that my chin is coming at an angle across that line. So all I'm going to do is draw what I see in each individual square. Okay, so for step 2, we're going to start laying in our design. Our contour lines are all sketched in. Most of this over here is going to be really easy for us to do because it's in shadow. To get to the next part, though, we're going to really want to make skin tone. And let's talk about that for a second over here. So on our colors, you can see where burnt sienna, our cad yellow, quinacridone, our cad red, and our Naples yellow light. Skin tones are going to be a combination of our reds, our yellows, our brown with white. And I find it's really helpful, no matter what skin tone you're using, to make a kind of master mix. So let's put out a little bit of our quinacridone and mix in some of our nice Naples yellow light, right? So that's a nice kind of soft color, and you can see that mixes in and makes a pretty nice skin tone. Sometimes it's nice to put a smidge of cad yellow into this, kind of warm it. We have kind of what you would think of as a nice lip color. Let's give it a little bit of brown. Right? And then when you're thinking skin tones, you'll be asking yourself, is there more yellow? Is there more brown? Is there more gray? When I look at this, I do think I need a little more yellow into that. The skin tones can sometimes be more yellow than we necessarily think. Right? So that we're getting there. And that's quite dark, right? That doesn't really necessarily look like a very fair skin tone, but as we add white and as we add dark, we'll easily be able to lighten and darken that. Now, coming from the back here, most of the skin tone here is kind of in shadow, which gives us a neat opportunity to take a little bit of this base skin tone, and you can add either blue or black, but for the purposes of this, because we're trying to blend it into the background of the painting, we'll start with the black. And you can kind of come here and very carefully pull in a hint, just a hint, right? Because you want a very dark value of what might be her body kind of fading into this darker background, right? It's very dark. Have I said dark enough, John? I don't know. But it is super dark, and these are subtle events that we're doing. And what'll be neat is that we'll take all of this out with our black and then continue moving forward. Now, I've got my number 8 Cambridge here. I could do my cat's tongue. I can do my Cambridge. It's not really important on the brush. I'm going to add just a little bit slightly lighter value of the skin tone there. And let's hint in, this is a hint, a bit of her collarbone. I'm kind of wiggling back and forth. It's generally kind of a very tender, soft line. You need to get back into the black. Back in black. Sorry. This happens to me. I get all excited. And I'll sort of taper that in. And you can see that just hints a bit of a collarbone. These are just delicate, aren't they, John?
Yeah.
And that's important to realize, is that some of these lighting, some of these elements will be very delicate and subtle. They're not big changes. They're not huge amounts. They are much less. She's got a shadow under here, but it's definitely lighter than the shadows that she has back there. And interestingly enough, right here, I kind of want to imply a tendon or something, so I'm going to pull a little more of that skin tone in, and I'm going to go whoop with a little bit of white. Let's put that right there. It's not a big amount, it's just a hint. And some of what we have to do is learn how we're going to hint at some things. So you see we've got just a little bit going on. I'm going to get back into my dark value. Make sure I've got some good shading and blending happening. Right up to the chin. Where you need to come in with a darker value, you just add more black into it. You can see that it really easily, as you add black, kind of blends stuff into the background. It's a subtle thing, and I'm going to show you how subtle it is, because even on the hat and everything, things will disappear very quickly. I just took a little bit of black, and I'm going to go into where we don't even see the grid and stuff anymore, John. We're going to be wrapping up pretty soon on step 2, because we don't want to take this on too big. We'll get overwhelmed, especially with people, because sometimes people are not just, they're kind of emotionally overwhelming for us, right? We feel like, oh, this is a person, they're highly recognizable, so everything around them feels kind of hypercritical. So let's call this step 2, and then come back and we'll start putting in some more of the shadows and highlights around the face and the rest of the neck. So here for step 3, we're going to continue kind of working this out. I'm going to shade a bit around the chin, and then we're going to start kind of thinking maybe a little bit about some of these warmer highlights as we come forward. So back into the black. Make sure you don't have too much water on your brush in our skin tone, because this is quite a dark little shadow that comes off the chin. Let's bring that in here. I'm going to pull more black in. So even as I'm doing this, you can see I kind of curve the brush down. So there is a bit of the brush stroke directionality does kind of impact some of what we've got going on. And again, under here, under the brim along the top of the lip line. Interestingly enough, there's a really wonderful under the lip.
Let me peek over your left shoulder there.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Under the lip and kind of around the chin. Try to stay out of your own head if you can at all, because it's really easy to start like analyzing everything you're doing. Let's put a little shadow in where the collarbone shadow is going to be. Now this is lighter than a lot of what we had over here. And definitely some of that darker value is going to be afoot right here. And I feel like we're going to see it get darker here on her shoulders. So definitely working that. As I come into lighter and lighter on the skin tone, I still have a bit of the black on it because the shadows need to move forward but feel related to each other, if that makes kind of a sense. So like right here, you know, I would half tone that just a smidge. You know, and we can always come back and add more dark value, less dark value. Let's come here off the divot above the nose. And at some point I may have to switch to like my Ruby Satin Bright or something sharper that gives me a little bit more control. It's going to be important to not get too much in the weeds. And you're going to want to get in the weeds about it. You just are. You're going to want to get in the weeds because it's a face. And that's how we are about faces. I'm going to get my number 6 Ruby Satin Bright out because it's a bit smoother. And it's going to let me kind of turn some sharper edges and things. As I'm coming forward on the skin tone, I'm going to add a lot more white, if you can see. And when necessary, I'll get even more of my yellow into that. Look how kind of yellow that is. Surprisingly so, almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's come along the top line here. Coming over here. And you can always take this off the side of the surface if you want. We can always come back with the soft Cambridge to soften any of this, but it's really just about finding those first values. You know, and then when you think about skin tones and when they're in the shadow, you know, that impacts you. So getting those dramatic moments out is a big deal. I may even get a lot more into my yellow and my white here. I'm going to come right under here and kind of imply almost a highlight that's happening. And let's look here. I kind of see another little highlight coming down. There's definitely sort of one on my collarbone here that's really lovely. I can always get back into my darker and darker skin tones as I'm going. More yellow into that so you can just see me kind of working that. Sometimes the scruffy brushes are nice because they help us kind of scruff into our surface a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Kind of a nice line there. So we're just playing with the shadows and the skin tone. You may have to come back and kind of work the highlight in a bit. I may come in here with this light and kind of put that highlight back. There we go. We're over that paint once this is in. Now, I can always get back in here, kind of maybe thinking about the shadow, and that could be a little bit lighter. Because we're being dramatic, and everything about this can be just sort of fun and dramatic. Be dramatic. going to bring this down here. And we're going to even say that there's a slightly lighter, darker than the collarbone, but lighter than our deepest shadow, kind of tempering of that shadow right here as it comes down. Kind of implying the divot of the shoulder. And I think the last thing I'm going to want to do is maybe start to talk about what's going on in the chin. And again, we're not trying to be tight about this. We're trying to, paint what we see accurately, learn about our subject matter, but also be kind of in and out as we need to. So this will be an interesting thing. I like the chin, how it's kind of sort of directly in light. But I have to remember that my skin tone is really dark under the lip. I'm done. And there's this weird halftone I want to try to capture. Not quite as dark as everything else. But still its own. It's not like blending, but it is. It does kind of speak to shape. And that's going to be what we play with. Woo, what we play with. Something mothed by me for a second and I freaked out. Lord knows I don't do a mothing well. Better than spiders.
That's true. Little moth.
I can't cope. It needs to go away. I need to vacuum it or something. Okay. Continuing on. That's super professional.
We might just leave that one in there.
No. Making sure that we are. This is one of those ones. It's worth negotiating around, Finding that exact space on the chin. And we can put in a little more of our just base skin tone as we're going around. A little more yellow if we need it. You can see we can lighten it, we can darken it, we can add yellow if we need it. We've got some room. My goodness, that was intense. Right here, and maybe start to kind of think about could be lighter. Right there. And a little bit on that outside lip. As outside lips go. So let's call this 3. And really mostly because when you're first doing this, it's a very overwhelming process, and taking in a little bit less and trying to do it. The challenge I really have to say, and John's going to back me up, is that as you're painting this, as you're doing this, don't be critical. Be forgiving of yourself. Just try to get the mixes. Just try to do what you need to do, but be easy about it. This isn't the moment to get wrapped up in perfection. It's the moment to kind of introduce yourself to the idea of skin tones and values in relationship to human faces.
Yeah.
I'll see you back for step, what? 4?
That sounds about right.
Okay. So for step 4, we're going to continue to refine some of these ideas. We're going to try to see values as well as we can, but not get too caught up in all the little things. I am going to alternate between my number 6 bright ruby satin and my number 4. And that's just so that I have some control over line and curve. Now back into our little shadow skin mix, which is just terrific to be able to go back and forth to do this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Here on the divots. I have to create a divot shadow, and I'll go ahead and pull that into the hat. Otherwise, it's just too hard to deal with. And I'm going to come here, and on this side, it is slightly lighter, but not like light per se. That makes sense. And it doesn't go too far back with that lighter value. Then also kind of like right here is maybe slightly lighter. As I come forward, I'm going to want to definitely get some of my lighter skin values going because there's kind of a highlight happening here. Let's come in here. And I don't want to paint it too tight, but I do want to be able to capture kind of its general little aspect of a lightness. I think, remember that incredible lightness of being?
Mm-hmm.
Another little light value. I'm going to come up here. Kind of still light. I definitely want to make sure that these are, the divot needs to taper in a bit. Otherwise, it gets just a little overwhelming on its divotness. I'm going to just also kind of shade that right there. Right, keep my divot from being overwhelming. It's okay to take it into your lip deeply if you know you need to come back and lift it out. Back into my base skin tone. Base, 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 base. It's always nice. Remember Ace of Base? Sorry. I don't know what's up with me. And this one I might say, oh, hey, let's put a little more magenta in there. And I'm going to get my white. I need a light value. Sometimes I have to really pull into the white to capture it. There's this sort of sense of light right here. And I feel like also right at the cheek a bit. More into my regular kind of coming down skin tone. I love doing these. They're almost value studies. And sometimes we need a little value in our study. Just refining that there. Kind of pull that back a bit. This definitely needs to be a little bit minimized and reduced. You can kind of see I just brushed that back where that needs to be a little minimized and reduced. I'm going to get into a lot more of my Naples yellow and my white. It's an interesting kind of high reflection. I'm going to come right here. Bit of a high reflection. And then you can always kind of secondary lighter reflections. Oh, the chin shape has a bit of this going on. Similar stuff as we're going through back into the main skin tone for value. So you're like, ask yourself these questions. Lighter, darker. More red, more yellow, more white. And again, for many, this will be, maybe one of those more challenging kind of moments. But don't let that be the thing that stops you. Just because something is more challenging doesn't mean that you shouldn't get into it. A little black in there. Just to make sure that it's kind of grayed out. It'll be a little, soften that a bit. Softening different parts of that just a bit.
It's amazing how quickly she just sort of comes to form.
She does. This one I feel is more like developing when we develop our face, and then also as you're painting, you'll be like, oh, I see this amazing kind of like a highlight that's happening right there. And maybe it's just a little darker than I painted it, but it's definitely there. So I can, keep coming back, but remember, I'm trying to lighten it just some. There we go. Because that's quite nice. I love doing these. Pulling that right there, just trying to find that balance as you do. Back into kind of my interesting little highlight space. And even as you're getting the highlight space with the yellow, you can always come back into the quin. It does some interesting stuff. You can paint above where you know the hat's going to have a moment. Sorry about the hand in the way. A little more yellow. Definitely want to put a little highlight right there. It just kind of comes down because it just got caught with just a smidge of light. And then here again, maybe a little bit around the divot. Just trying to make sure that that divot isn't too much. Now, I think this is a good place because again, actually let's clean up this line with the black. It'll help us kind of see the image a little bit better. If we come right
Oh, I
here,
see. Are you just using water or is that actually black
black.
paint?
I'm just going to use black. I could use just water, but
Oh,
sometimes the dust on the black just shows too much even when you clean it with water. So if I come in with my black, it will give me the cleaner aspect, you know, that I might be looking for. But you can see what we have is a dramatically lit face.
mm-hmm.
We're being dramatic. So dramatic. Our lighting is extreme. Our what we're seeing is a small amount. It's leading us in. So I'm gonna come back on step 5 and we're gonna maybe work in the lips. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
So much like the skin value here on 5, what we're gonna do is we're gonna begin to like pull in the lips, right? And we're gonna start with a master mix, deepen it, and then bring out the values. So for sure, we're going to be much stronger in the magenta than the CAD red at first. Our first part of the mix is almost entirely magenta with a little bit of CAD. And you can deepen it with blue or black, but for the purposes of how we're doing this piece, I'm going to go ahead and deepen it with our black. So let's come forward and really sort of look at how this part of our lip is shaped. Make sure you've got enough water in here. You know, again, we're not trying to be tight, but you do got to have some flow. I like to just kind of arc that little bow up. And it's okay that you may, right, come back in with some lighter thought or thinking. See how we're pulling that. And it's quite dark, isn't it? It blends almost into the background. Not totally, but pretty darn close. Now, coming around on her little lip, let's bring this down a bit. Curving that. We know that where the lips join, that's quite in shadow. And I'm going to be highlighting, but I do want to make sure I've got kind of a little red base there. So there we go. So basic lip. Her second, this part of the lip is just a little bit more reduced and there's a little perspective going on there that we got to think about. You may want to full up the lip. But whatever you do, make sure that you retain the fun. So I'm going to rinse out some. And I, again, going to get my CAD and my magenta. More to the magenta. You can see that there. Pretty subtle. Now the center here will always be just a little bit brighter. Might even hint there. Outer lip part. Might hint right here, just barely, with this kind of deeper value. And I'll go ahead and carry this out, even though I know I've got some much lighter values to think about. And I'm going to just know that I've got a little center of the lips where they're very much in shadow. As I come forward, more CAD into our magenta CAD mix. Because it's very bright and it will really, really show. Tip out here just barely. As I come back, I'm going to make kind of this little curved stroke. Sometimes I leave a little bit of the darkest value showing. Maybe a little bit to that outer edge. And just perhaps a titch right there at the center of those lips. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Not bad at all.
Not bad at all. What happens if we get some of our Naples yellow in? Well, we get some interesting colors. I want to find a light color that will look like it's of the lips, but is certainly bright compared to the lips. These are small little marks. I got a little too much of the other, so all I got to do is come back in and be like, nope, nope, magenta, 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 magenta. If for any reason it gets out of hand, right? There you go, showing, showing, showing. Sometimes it's nice to get some just CAD in there. That's a little bit bright for that far back. It's an okay thing to observe though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Too bright for that far back. Kind of pull that in, make sure that we... Now I'm going to get back into my lip color that I deepened. You can always pull it kind of forward. And that looks pretty good. You have these sort of just glowing, just showing deep red full lips. The last little thing I might do, a little bit of my magenta, but a lot of my white. And just right here, a couple of places. Now give yourself a little bit of a shinier reflection, if that makes sense. Just to kind of show that that lip is shinier. I also like to take a little bit of my Naples yellow and a lot of my white. Make a pretty good highlight skin color.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to come here on the top of the lip. Up a bit to that side. Up a bit there. And then down just a smidge. You know. So it's just kind of all highlighted. That's all we're going to do. Okay. So come back. We're going to clean up and start on the hat. On the hat, I'm going to get back into my number 6 bright just because I want a small minor brush. I'm going to take some of my blue and some of my black. I'm going to mix them together. And I'm going to say this is the basis of my hat band. Now, I'm pretty confident in my flowers, so I'm going to just paint over those because I know how to put them back. And I'm going to show you how to put them back super easily. You can paint around the edge if you want. Now on the hat, we don't want a lot of it, but you are going to want some highlights. Very dark ones, and I like to keep them kind of in the blue range. Like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then just right here, because that would be where obvious, like the most light, right?
Yeah.
Brush it back very lightly. It's subtle. Doing a subtle thing, and then maybe a little more. I thought about there. There we go. Just the beginning of just a little bit of the brim. Because just a little of the brim is showing. I'm going to come in here to my black. It helps for it to feel like a hat if the line is very clean.
Mm-hmm.
Which now I think that looks like that's a very clean line on that hat, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Now, and guys, be very forgiving of yours. These are very strong colors. Everything here is strong. So, be sure when you're looking at the up close of mine that you're taking into that account when you're viewing your own and you're not being overly harsh or judgmental of your own art.
Wow, that looks really good.
It looks good, but we have a little bit of extra zhuzh because I can't do anything without a little zhuzh. Zhuzh. And to do the little zhuzh, I'm going to put out a bit more of my quinacridone because I love it. I'm going to put kind of some different little flowers and things here. The first thing though I'm going to want to do is I will put out a little bit of some green leaves. So let's take a little bit of my phthalo green and a bit of my burnt sienna. It's quite dark. Right? Very, very dark. And I'm going to come back here where it's dark, as you can see, and these will be dark. Because when things are in the dark, they're dark.
I see.
But that doesn't mean that it isn't worth. You can see I'm just pulling. These are just the pull leaves that we do. Right? Some little pull leaves.
I can kind of adjust the camera there so you can see
Just
how
some of them.
Yeah, you can see they're kind of reflect. You can see the shininess of them.
But they are barely, barely, barely.
Yeah.
Barely, barely. I'm going to take a little bit of my Naples yellow and my green. It's a subtle color, right? Come in and just some of your leaves, just the front edge of them, because you want them to appear that they're going into the background, that they're dark. But maybe some of them caught a little light. You can make them more noticeable as they come forward. You just want it to be minor.
Mm-hmm.
Now here, super, super fun, I'm going to take my Quin and my Cad, mixed together in a smidge of my Naples yellow light. Smidge, because I want a dark center. And we're going to do kind of these little, almost, I don't want to say they're ranunculuses or camellias, but they're a flower with very tight petals where maybe we only catch some of the tip of them. And I'm going to use a round brush stroke. Kind of speak to it. On the back end, I do want this to be more magenta. And maybe a little darker, if that makes sense. As we talk about what is that very neutrally on her face. Again, the mix of these two and a lot more of my Naples yellow. Just lighten it. More so on the outside and more to the front. A lot more Naples yellow and some of my white now. Just the front. Imagine that you're catching just the lip, the edge of your leaf, of your petal. That's what's catching the light. Small amounts. Just a little bit, right? Maybe a little bit of your yellow and your white. And I'm going to say definitely you want nice flow off your brush. Kind of layering these, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a bit warmer as it comes on the front. Now, as I go through, I'm going to definitely want to pull these two together. Love the combo. And we're going to make some thoughtful little buds, as you would have. Perhaps a little more of the Naples. And then get right into here to that highlighting color. Okay. Then I'm going to want to put some other little sprigs here, but I kind of want things to dry so I can do the next part. So let's stop here at this flower, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to do the rest of the sprigs on the hat. Now looking at this, right, and I've got my bright here, there's a couple of things. I really feel like these are almost still too bright. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to come back with a little of my Quinn and my Cad Red, and this time just some of my black so they're a little bit deepened. And I'm going to kind of come over. No, that's too bright. Got all the Cad on there, and I'm like, there's the brightest color I have. I'm going to just make sure that some of this is just, again, that darker color, because as these come through, they would be very close in value to everything that's in these dark shadows.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't lose those in any way.
Her face would be kind of an analog for the flower.
Yeah, it should be. Oh, that's a nice way of looking at it. It's an analog for the flower. I do, however, I wanted some different color in here, so I'm going to take a little of my blue and purple, and I'll take a little white into this. It's kind of loosely mixed. We're going to start to add some of these. Just because they'll get some color.
Mm-hmm.
And they make an interesting texture in the hat. I like doing hats. I feel like this is like a very moody lady with a very cheerful hat.
Why is she moody?
I think she's just in moody lighting. I think really she's just like walked in some really spectacular lighting.
I think the lighting is moody. She's all like taking advantage of that moody light. She's like,
quick, get a selfie.
Yep. She's like,
this is as good as it's gonna get all week. So that's pretty nice, right? Those little flowers. But I do want some elements on them that are a bit brighter. So I can take my blue and my phthalo green together, and it makes kind of a phthalo turquoise. And if I get a lot of my white, you can see that bright color.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to come here and just make sure that I've got some highlights on them too. All of them, but maybe some of them have these like pops of highlight. And it's a really nice color combo, the purple with the turquoise.
Yeah.
Really gives you something quite pretty. So you can do a flower and really enjoy that flower a lot. A little more white and yellow together. You can enjoy the flower a lot. Let's put a little highlight right here.
I've enjoyed this flower.
Now some of these leaves here I feel should be brighter, so I'm going to get some of my green and some of my Cad yellow. Pretty bright color. Any given Sunday, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's brighten some of those that are maybe tucked up front.
More layers.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. She's got a happy hat, but she's a moody girl.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I like that. And my last thing is I want to make sure that this is nice and cleaned up. So I'm going to take a little of my black.
Just make sure that she has a nice, perfect silhouette there.
Yeah,
in that
even though
darkness.
we can barely see it, those crisp lines, those things can make a huge difference
Mm-hmm.
in how we view things. How things blend out, what we see, what we don't see can be really impactful. And can always come back. It's interesting, people forget that you can glaze a little bit with black and also shade things somewhat. See that?
Yeah.
Pushing something back into shadow. Kind of exaggerating the contrast of some of that flower.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that adds something. Now, I think we're there. We've put our time in. We've learned a little bit about all these things. And we have to be sort of happy that we did. She's sort of a fun deviation from a lot of what we've had going on, right?
Yeah.
So let's sign her. I think I'll sign her in a skin tone that I have going.
All right.
Just because, you know, I'll just find a very, very light skin tone and sign her in that. So it doesn't really distract from the whole piece. I could have signed along the edge of her shoulder here too.
Mm-hmm. I like it there.
Just a little bit right there in the corner. There we go. Look at this. We spent a little time and worked on some skin tones. This might be your first face ever.
It looks great.
Skin tones can be a lot to take on when you're a new painter, and hopefully the wonderful dramatic lighting of this brought that down a little bit and made it a little bit easier. I loved sharing every part of this painting with you guys. Now, you can just do this one, but I would love to encourage you to come back. So the next painting in the series is this dramatic desert sunset. It's going to cover a lot of stuff about color mixes. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think you'd really like it. Be good to yourself. Be good to each other. I want to thank you for your time, and I'll see you at an easel really soon. Bye-bye.